Okay, let's give this a try. I've got this mock fence built around the tanks to keep light off of them and to help insulate them during the winter. There is enough room I can slide foam in there. I'm still debating doing that. But anyway, I got the fence built around. I still need to build lids over the top to keep the sunlight out. There's a ton of algae in that water because it sat for so long without anything shielding the IBC totes. Now, the next thing is I'd ordered some strawberries and I planted some of them indoors, but it's been a couple weeks since I got them. And they're starting to die, if they're not already. A couple of them started to sprout again while they were still in the plastic bag. It's just taken me so long because of my back and other issues slowing me down. So what I'd wanted to do was have the floating raft done and start planting lettuce and stuff like that, and the strawberries in the floating raft. That's obviously not going to happen. I don't really want to mess with making the strawberry towers and trying to set up that kind of feed and water supply. NFT, I keep going back and forth on. I think I'm going to do a mock NFT, a system similar to what I've heard, I believe it was Paul McHugh called a river tunnel. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 3-inch PVC drain line, and I'm going to take it and run it along the top edge, just below the top, along the fence. I've got some shelf brackets I'm going to screw up to the fence, and I'm just going to set this on the shelf brackets. I'm going to run a piece down this side. When it gets to the corner, I'm going to elbow it over, run it across the end, and then across the back. And I'm going to cap the ends of it with this kind of a cap so I can drill them, put my 1-inch with a number 18 O-ring in my normal method of making an attachment, and one will be the supply on one end. The water will get pumped in, make the loop, and dump from the other end back down. If they're high enough, straight back to the fish tank. If they're too low, I'll have it dumped down to the sump. Now I'm going to put a canister filter in line between the pump and where the inflow on this pipe setup is going to be. There's my pipe down there. I've got the two 3-inch drains and a piece of 1-inch to do the other plumbing with, and I've got the little short piece I'm going to run across the end here. But I'll show y'all that canister filter when I get to that point. I'm going to get everything else built and then get everything plumbed together. But I'll include the canister filter and how I get it attached and everything, and we can go from there with it. But at any rate, that's what it's going to be. And I'm going to drill. I've got some net cups ordered, and I've got some net cups that I made by taking some small plastic cups and using a soldering iron and just melting slits in them, so I can plant some stuff before I can get those out. And then I've got some heavier tarp material that should block out the light. I'm going to cut it up, use 1/2-inch PVC to make frames to hold it, and just use that as my lids. Once I get it hooked on and attached, it'll keep rainwater out of the tanks, and it should shield enough of the light to take care of the algae problem. So we'll see. But at any rate, that's what this project is. That 3-inch PVC running along the top of the wrap around the fish tanks. We're going to put net cups every 8 inches or so. If I space them every 8 inches, every 10 foot gives me 15 pots. So that way I can put the net pots around, 2 full sticks, one in the back, one across the front. That gives me 30. Then it's 4 foot across this end, so that's going to give me another 6. 6, maybe 7, depends on what I plan in them, across the back. I'll probably just put 6, keep the spacing 1 every 8 inches across the back. But that'll give me 37 additional plants that I can plant that without using very much more space at all, just a few inches out from the fish tanks all the way around. And if I need to get into the fish tanks, I can always pull the net pot out and move it over. So that's what this project is going to be. So strap in and hang on. We're about to get started. I should have gotten started a lot earlier. it's so late in the day today, I'm actually thinking about putting it off till tomorrow. But that's what the plan is. This project, we're going to be trying to run a channel system around the 3-inch PVC around the top edge of the surround for the IBC totes. That way I'll wind up with, by just coming out a few inches more from the fish tanks all the way around, using very little space, a lot more planting area, because I'm going to put pop holes for net pots in the PVC every 8 inches, so that'll give me 36 pot areas, so planting areas. So 36 plants, 36 heads of lettuce, 36 strawberry plants, 36 kale or chard or what have you, without using up very much area at all. So to start with, I'm going to have to get leveled around so that my water flows properly, because I just want it to stay a certain height inside the tube. So I'm going to fill in from one end and let it drain out of the other. So I need that pipe to be level all the way around, so that the flow is controlled by the water coming into it, not because of any angle or anything like that. So in order to do that, I'm going to use what's called a water level. Now, this is an old hose that's been broken many times. Bugs. They sell kits for water level that are similar to this, but they got fancy little caps and lids on them. But similar to this, but I just took a couple pieces of 5/8 tubing. I took this 5/8 garden hose that I put replacement ends on it here and there and whatnot, and it just fits very snugly down inside the actual garden hose. So all I had to do is stuff it like that. Now from this point, you fill this with water until it gets up inside the plastic where you can see it. So I'm going to plant one of them off over here. Actually, I think I'm going to plant this end off. This one's closer to the hose. Now when you plant your end off, you want to make sure air can go through. Because if you block it off, all that's going to happen is water's going to fill in until the air pressure builds up enough to stop it, and then it's just going to shoot back out. Basically, you want to fill the water in. Fill up, allow the air bubbles to go out, and then add any more water that you need. I'm not sure how well that's showing on camera, but I've got a water level right here, and I can see water on the other end. Now since water naturally seeks a level, wherever the water is on that end, this end, all I have to do is simply mark it. I don't need any specific place or anything else. All I have to do is mark where those two heights are. Now if I had the fancy kit, I could plug the ends and keep the water in there all the time, but I don't, so I've got to work with what I have. And that just doesn't seem like it's right. It seems, well, actually this does run pretty much uphill. So what I can do now is come back, double check that. I'll make a mark here. And I can come over here to the height of the water and make a mark. I can take this same end and move it to all the other corners of the system, move it to all the other corners of the system and make a mark, and that will give me a level point all the way around the entire system. And then I can use that level point, those marks, as somewhere to measure off of to get the exact heights that I want to set my brackets to put the PVC onto. And that way my tube will be running level all the way around. Although if you have air bubbles and stuff like that in your hose, it can change things. So I'm going to go through real quick and try to shake all the bubbles out, make sure there's no air in the system, so that the level will be reading accurately, because if there's air trapped in there somewhere, the accuracy can vary wildly, and it doesn't look very accurate right now, even by eye. I mean, all right, well, it's actually settled down some. It's gone down a lot over on that side. Well, but I don't have it in the same place anymore, so it's not better than it was. Actually, that's probably fairly close now. I'm ready to get that done. I'll get my marks. I'll move the hose around and get all four corners marked. Then I'm probably just going to pop a line and use that line to set my brackets on. Okay, I decided that rather than popping lines and having a chalk line all the way down, I just went ahead and held a piece of the pipe in place, figured about how high I wanted it to be, made a couple marks, and I just went around leveling off my level marks up to where I wanted the pipe, and just straight edge from mark to mark to get the height of the bracket. And I'm just going to use regular shelf brackets. They don't have to be anything super fancy. These are coated, enamel coated, so they shouldn't rust for a good long while. They're just long enough to support the 3-inch pipe. And the good thing about these, you can take a pair of pliers and bend the tab up on the end, and that helps hold things in place. And the way I built this, when I was putting this together, there's a 2x4 along the bottom, a couple inches up, so the water doesn't stay trapped underneath it and dries out faster. 2x4 at the top, a couple inches down. That 2x4 is at a good height for me to be able to screw straight into it. So I'm just going to use 1.25 inch wood screws. And I'm not going to put any screws in the bottom. There's no real need to. I'm just going to put screws in the top. The weight of the pipe with the water in it on top of it is going to hold that bottom in. So that's all I'm going to do. We just go around now, aligning my brackets up where I want them to be. Now, if I were using longer, thicker screws, I'd pre-drill. But in this situation, these are basically the coarse thread drywall screws. Don't really need a pre-drill. So I'm just going to go around and do that. After I finish that, I'll start assembling drilling and marking and drilling the tube, and we'll go from there.